Mark Biro.
Mohegan Sun Casino on the Mohegan Reservation, the home of the Mohegan Indians, for an evening of championship boxing on ESPN. Under the promotion of Top Rank Incorporated in association with Budweiser, this Bud's for you. Tonight's bouts are under the auspices of the Mohegan Tribal Commission, Chairman Roland Harris, and the Connecticut State Athletic Commission, the Department of Consumer Protection Commissioner Mark Schifrin, Executive Director John Burns. This is your first bout of the evening. It is scheduled for 8 rounds, middleweights. Your referee for this event from New York City, New York, Jim Santa. Introducing now the principals first. In the red corner to my right, wearing the gold trunks, black trim. He weighs in at 158 pounds. His professional record, 8 victories, 3 defeats, 1 draw. He has 4 wins by way of knockout. He hails from New York City, New York. Here is Christian Lloyd Joseph. His opponent, in the blue corner, wearing the black trunks, gold trim. He weighs in at 157 pounds. His professional record, 13 victories, 1 defeat. He has 9 wins by way of knockout. He hails from Brooklyn, New York, and now makes his home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Here is Keith Mullings. 8 rounds, middleweights.
Let's take a look at the rules for tonight's first bout in the middleweight division between Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings. 3 knockdown rule in effect, standing 8 count. Fighter may be saved by the bell only in the final round. Mandatory 8 count, no disqualification for low blows, and 3 judges will score the fight at ringside. Lloyd Dancing Christian Joseph, 24 years of age, born in St. Croix on the Virgin Islands, now fighting out of New York City, has not fought in 5 months and 22 days. His last fight, September the 6th of this year, here on ESPN, actually on the deuce, a 6-round decision over Demetrius Davis. Davis, a last-minute fill-in for Aaron Mitchell.
And now again, Aaron Mitchell's not here, and instead it's Keith Mullings who is in the mix. And I wasn't actually being facetious about Aaron Mitchell. I like Aaron Mitchell. I like watching him fight, so I hope we do get a chance to see him pretty soon. He's a good power puncher from Philly, and we look forward to seeing him on the show.
Joseph has only 2 first-round knockouts in his career, and they came in his first 2 professional fights. The last one, April the 24th, 1993, against Dwayne Oates. So you have to go back 3 years, 10 months, and 2 days to find a knockout on the ledger of Joseph. Has 66 rounds as a pro. And what about Mullings?
Well, we mentioned that Mullings took this fight on short notice. He's a 29-year-old who has lots of experience as a boxer in the Army. He was at Fort Bragg, and there he trained with the likes of Anthony Hembrook and Booker T. Ward, folks like that. And he's a good pro at 13-1, and a guy who they took this bout because they wanted the exposure. Arnie Rosenthal, his manager, said this was worth coming in here on short notice because we want the world to see what Keith Mullings has to offer, and so this is his stage tonight.
Now, Arnie mentioned that he had touched base with the matchmakers about Mullings a couple of weeks ago, and they said, well, we're all set. He says, well, if you need anything, if you need a last-minute fill-in, my guy is ready. And Mullings said, let's give it a shot. He has 9 knockouts in his 14 professional fights.
Lloyd Joseph is not a huge knockout puncher. He's got the 4 KOs, but he is not a big puncher. But he is an active fighter, and we've seen him in some very good matches, the one you mentioned, and also in 2 matches against Robert West, who's a very good boxer out of Youngstown, Ohio. He had a draw with West, and then he had a loss to him in 1995. Those were very entertaining matches.
Joseph on the attack. Joseph has been knocked out once. That was May 29th of 1994 in Guyana. 10th round TKO at the hands of Anthony Andrews. Pretty brisk action here in round 1.
Joseph a little wide with his punches, as is Mullings. Joseph has a good left hook, and you've seen him try and get it in on a couple of occasions here in round 1.
These boxers in the middleweight division. Joseph about 1.5 inches taller than Mullings in the black trunks. Joseph in the gold. Final seconds of round one. Lloyd Joseph, Keith Mullings on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Papa Al Bernstein back at the Mohegan Sun at Uncasville, Connecticut. Round number 2 underway between Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings. Joseph in the gold, Mullings in the black. These are middleweights, and this one is scheduled for 8. Keith Mullings, an interesting young character out of Brooklyn, New York, and one thing that's very important to him is boxing, and not only what he does in the ring, but what it means to him in his life.
I've been in a situation with fights that start at the beginning of the fight. The guys seem very dominating, but you don't let that discourage you. You go ahead, you stick with your game plan, and you keep a strong mental attitude and overcome him, break his will. And life is the same thing. Life throws so much opposition at you that try to break your will, but you can't let that negative force break you. So you have to overcome those forces to go on, to be on top.
Sounds like a true Army man.
Good philosophy by Keith Mullings, and he's come in here tonight to get past Christian Lloyd Joseph. Joseph switching to the southpaw style. He will do that from time to time. We saw a lot of that when he fought Robert West. We saw West after that, parenthetically, against, I believe it was Page from Pittsburgh, who's a very good junior welterweight. And West did very well. It'd be nice to see him back on our ESPN show.
Numbers in round 1.
Very close first round, and I actually ended up giving a slight edge to Joseph, even though those numbers indicate Mullings was a little bit ahead. But when it's that close, you can go either way.
And you can be sure the judges will all see it different.
Yeah, that was a very close round. Joseph staying with the left-handed stance now.
Let's see how that affects Mullings, if at all. Now Joseph goes back to the right-handed style, the more conventional style.
He's had a hard time, Joseph has, getting the jab in early in this bout. But so has Mullings, for that matter. Christian Lloyd Joseph was a Puerto Rican national champion in 1991, had a very good amateur career.
Very interesting story on how he got the name Dancing Christian. We'll elaborate on that a little bit later on. Round number 2 coming to an end. Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings scheduled for 8. From the corner of Keith Mullings, we begin round number 3 in the scheduled 8-round middleweight bout. Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings. So far, a pretty even fight through the first 2 rounds. Don't forget our main event, the WBU Cruiserweight Championship. James Toney and Mike McCallum battle for the vacant title. Now you have some numbers for us.
We look at round 2 where Mullings got a pretty sizable edge over Joseph. I did give him the round, and I think Keith Mullings started to establish not only the jab but the right hand a little bit in that round as well. Just to shatter the stereotype that some people may have of boxers, Christian Lloyd Joseph is a full-time student at, of all places, Columbia University. And in fact, I have to say, I've been doing boxing for 16 years. I want to say I've bumped into a pretty good percentage of boxers who either have or are attending college in some fashion. So people should not think that boxers don't do that.
We saw that working with the amateurs leading up to the Olympics. Joseph a little wide with his punches there. He continues to go back to the southpaw style.
And I'm not sure that's the best posture for him because he hasn't really made it work yet. So unless you make something work, I'm not sure you should go back to it. I gave the first round to Joseph and the second one to Keith Mullings, so I've got this one dead even.
meaningful shot landed. I have to agree with you on that scorecard.
The right hand of Joseph's, as a righty now, is starting to get there. That's one of the reasons why he might want to stay in that posture.
As we touched upon earlier, Joseph, not a big power puncher, has 4 knockouts in his 12 professional bouts, has 1 third-round knockout. Joseph backpedaled. Remember, Mullings does have 9 knockouts in his 14 pro fights, so there is some power there.
Keith Mullings' ticket is the right hand after the jab, and he's starting to find a home for that. That's his big power punch, and the reason he's finding it is because he's making his jab work.
And Joseph looked back at his corner and said, almost, what should I do? I think they said, get on your horse.
He was using all of this ring, that's for sure. And this is a very good round for Keith Mullings.
And the ring is 21-21. Closing seconds of round 3, scheduled for 8. Joseph and Mullings on ESPN's Championship Boxing. ESPN's Championship Boxing in Uncasville, Connecticut. Glad you can join us. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein. The WBU Cruiserweight Championship to come in our main event. Tony against McCallum for the 3rd time. In the ring, Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings in a scheduled 8-round middleweight bout. Joseph in the gold, Mullings in the black trunks. 2 rounds ago, we told you that Lloyd Joseph has a very interesting nickname, one that came from his days as a youth. He explains what it is and why.
Dancing Christian was given to me by the time I was like around 8 years old, I believe. Now, to tell you the truth, I did not remember the story. I don't remember this at all. My father always told me that when I was young, because since we lived on a farm in St. Croix, he said that the goat had butted me. A goat headbutted me. And I was like, what? And he told me what I did was I retaliated. Of course, I didn't knock the goat out, but I retaliated, and I started running, but dancing at the same time. So, I mean, that was something very, unusual, So that's how I got the name, Dancing Christian, basically by my father.
Al, you remember the last time you were headbutted by a goat?
I can just barely recall, but I'll tell you one thing. Any guy that attends Columbia University and was butted by a goat, it just shows you those brains were well encased, weren't they? Should have scrambled his brains.
Right now,
impressive.
Joseph going back to that southpaw style, switching back and forth at the midway point of round 4. You sense that Mullings is finding some type of range here, Al?
Yeah, he really is. He's gotten the jab in and the straight right hand. And I think that Joseph had it going for a moment or 2 as a righty with the jab and the straight right hand. I don't think the switching is serving him well. There's the edge in the total number for Mullings. It's not a huge edge, but after 3 rounds, 18 punches is significant. And I have him ahead 2 rounds to 1.
I'll agree with that. Ironically, the best round for Joseph was round 1, although it was a very close round, and that round he fought mostly from the conventional side.
Yeah, I just think it's a mistake for him to stay as a lefty. It hasn't worked well, and why do it?
Mullings saying, come on.
Yeah, Joseph's talking to him, too. They're doing a lot of chatting in the ring. Joseph has not established his jab, and that's been one of the real failings in this bout for him. That's why he's missing all those other punches.
Now, we're not putting a 13-1 with 9 knockout Keith Mullings out of Brooklyn in any world-class category, but normally when a guy like Joseph or any boxer gets a guy on short notice 1 or 2 days, he's a guy not in the greatest shape, but Keith Mullings is obviously a different type of late substitute. Round number 4 coming to an end. Uncasville, Connecticut. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein. Glad you can join us. The Mohegan Indian, known as the Wolf People.
Oh, and very good. Hey, this is a delightful, not only this arena, but this is a terrific casino and a beautiful setting. They have a beautiful entertainment area called the Wolf Den, appropriately enough.
They have the Wolf Pub. A lot of interesting Indian artwork on the premise.
You've done your homework, haven't you, Mr. Papa?
Get to know the people that you work with.
You're nothing if not a historian.
Round number 5 underway. Don't let me break out my Olympic notes on world geography.
Please. I had that for a month. I can live without that.
Hey, Keith Mullings, who took this fight on 2 days' notice, has really pushed Lloyd Joseph out through the first 4 rounds of this bout.
Now, I'm going to play matchmaker here. because we didn't get Aaron Mitchell. It hasn't worked out to get Aaron Mitchell in the ring against Keith Mullings. I want to see that match. They are perfectly matched. They're both right-handed punchers, jabbers. They will make perfect styles. And I want you to know, sitting right next to me is Ron Katz, the matchmaker, who's been trying. So I'm issuing this plea over the air to him. Let's make that match.
I'll tell you one thing right now. Lloyd Joseph would like to put an end to all of those thoughts with a win here. And there's blood behind the left ear of Joseph. And there might be a cut somewhere on his scalp from the collision of heads.
Yeah, I don't mean to rule Christian Lloyd Joseph out of this match. But right now, Keith Mullings is kind of controlling things a bit.
Now, here's one thing we have to take into account. You and I both have given 3 rounds to 1 to Mullings.
Yes.
And Joseph, as you take a look at the numbers in round number 4, has been boxing predominantly southpaw. Maybe his corner thinks he's winning, and they're saying, stay with this style, it's working.
Well, it could be, you know, and some of these, certainly these are fairly close rounds. I just don't think he's gotten enough done in this bout.
There's a right hand from Mullings that caught the attention of Joseph.
And it's not as if Mullings has been real sharp, but of course we said he did come in on short notice, even though they said he was, you know, pretty much in training. I don't think he was quite ready, as he might be.
Well, you heard his philosophy earlier on discipline, and of course he has an Army background, unlike Riddick Bowe's Marine background. And of course, Mullings has worked with Roy Jones Jr., and that's about as good as it gets. The heads might have come together there.
He really was impressed with the work with Roy Jones. Obviously, who wouldn't be? He said Roy Jones showed him what it is to be really a thinking fighter.
Well, Joseph ripped off a left there, but Mullings answered with a combination. Final seconds of round number 5. This one is scheduled for 8. Good one. Joseph and Mullings on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Welcome back to the Mohegan Sun. Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings begin round number 6 in a scheduled 8-round middleweight bout. Don't forget the main event still to come, the WBU Cruiserweight Championship between James Toney and Mike McCallum. And now you uncovered what the blood is on the left ear behind that of Lloyd Joseph.
The referee indicated to us that it was a clash of heads that created that, rather than a punch.
Good to know for you. Your Bulls are leading by 12 in their game.
Very good. Always good to see that. Keith Mullings with a nice edge here in round 5. And I think he's starting to really take control of this bout. Lloyd Joseph and we're harping on this, but the fact is it's a key point. He is not getting it done as a southpaw. And you know, we've seen Lloyd switch before in other fights and do it effectively. It's not working in this bout, you know, so he's better as a righty. There was a nice right hook downstairs by Joseph, and there he got in a nice straight left hand. So, of course, as soon as I say that, he's effective as a lefty.
Joseph with a right behind the ear. Be very interested to see how the judges score this.
Now, this is the best round for Lloyd Joseph from this posture. He has all of a sudden done well, and most of it has been fighting as a lefty. Before, it wasn't. So he finally has figured out there's a straight right by Mullings, but by and large, Christian Lloyd Joseph having a pretty good round here in round 6.
Joseph, who had a pretty good round number 1, although we thought it was tight. You're right, Al. By far, this has been his best round. Look at the jab and then the right.
He's doing well as a righty now, too, so whichever way he has fought in this 6th round. Now he rocks Mullings.
Mullings backs away. Joseph has never recorded a knockout this late in the bout. Only has 4.
Now the jab is setting up everything for Lloyd Joseph. Great round for Joseph.
Final 10 seconds of round 6. 2 more to go. Good one. Joseph and Mullings on ESPN's Championship Boxing. round number 6, Al.
Round 6, by far his best round of the fight. First, he got it done as a lefty, and then as a right-hander, he performed very well. And he had Keith Mullings in some trouble. He must have heard what I was saying about Mullings and Aaron Mitchell. He was probably saying, hey, cut that out. I might win this fight, and he might.
You and I both agree we have Mullings ahead by 2 points at 58-56. So could be looking at a draw here if Joseph can win these last 2 rounds. Now, that's according to our cards, of course.
Now Keith Mullings comes to life. He realized that last round was not a good one for him. We're going to see a couple of great champions in James Toney and Mike McCallum in the next round. But, you know, on the weekend of March 7th, 8th, and 9th, Ring Magazine's having their 75th anniversary celebration. It's going to be a lot of fun over at Bally's Park Place. And here's one of the things they're doing. They're voting on the best fighter of all time, period. Here's your choices: Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, Muhammad Ali, and Joe Louis. Now, I'm going to give you a round to think about that. In the next round, I want you to come back and tell me who you think is the best of all time from that group. It's a tough one.
I could give you my answer right now.
You mean you don't even have to think about that?
Well, only because I only saw one of them.
Well, but you saw films of them.
Yeah. I don't know if you can get as much off the film.
Well, all right, who would you vote for?
Vote for Ali.
You vote for Ali? All right. Well, I can tell you right now, while I respect Ali, I would have to vote for Sugar Ray Robinson. But then I'm a little older than you, and I saw him as a youngster. A youngster, I emphasize.
I think it helps to have seen someone.
Oh, you're a killjoy. Here's the total number through round 6. Keith Mullings with a 26 punch edge. And the reason that's not bigger is because Joseph had such a big 6th round.
Step back, Keith. No holding now. Let's fight. All right, let's go.
Final 50 seconds of round 7. Mullings blocking that combination.
But Joseph getting in a little bit better, using the jab much more effectively than he did early in the fight. And, you know, Mullings may be tiring a little bit.
It looks that way.
Because we said, you know, the short notice and all. Now Joseph switches to lefty, and I swear I won't denigrate him anymore for that, because in the 6th round he made it work.
Oh, he eats a double right hand, though, from Mullings.
Ooh, not this time.
And Joseph gets on the bicycle, and rightfully so.
This is a pivotal round for Joseph.
Joseph saying, come on, but you think he means it? Final seconds of round 7. Close fight. Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings, the 8th and final round to come. Yeah, we round middleweight bout between Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings. Good action.
Keith Mullings, toward the end of the round, landed some really good right hands to the head of Lloyd Joseph. And I guess the question we have to ask ourselves, did Keith Mullings do enough toward the end of that round to win the round?
The 8th and final round is underway. Mullings took this fight on 2 days' notice. Aaron Mitchell was supposed to fight, but backed out for the 3rd time against Lloyd Joseph. Very tight fight, at least the way we see it here at ringside.
I think Mullings, who had a good advantage going into maybe about the 5th or 6th round, but Joseph has come on. There's a straight right by Mullings, which has been getting in with some regularity.
A little left backed up Joseph there.
Good beginning to this round by Mullings.
Right there.
Traditionally against the southpaw, the left hook works very well, but Mullings has been able to get the lead right hand in even without that working. And now Joseph goes back to righty.
From Mullings, midway point of round 8. 8th and final round, I might add.
Close fight as far as I'm concerned. I have Mullings ahead now by 1 point going into the last round. This one, the scores could vary widely. They could be very divergent scoring. But so far, Keith Mullings is having a good 8th round. So for Christian Lloyd Joseph, I think if he needed this 8th round to tie or to win, I'm not sure he's getting it.
There have been no knockdowns. Under a minute to go in the final round.
Well, the man that's doing the aggressive action and throwing the punches is Mullings. So unless Joseph may think he's ahead in this one, and who knows, he may be, but he's not being very aggressive and throwing too many punches here in the 8th and final round.
And Joseph looks a bit fatigued. Joseph continuing to look at his corner. He has 20 seconds.
There's the jab of Mullings, and that has helped him here in this 8th round.
Come down to the final seconds of the bout. Lloyd Joseph and Keith Mullings. As the clock was ticking, they were in a clinch, and Joseph was able to rip off a couple of punches as the bell rang, but a few were late, and that was the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a split decision. Judge A.J. Sinise scores it 77-76, Mullins. Judge Glenn Feldman scores it 77-75, Joseph. Judge Steve Weisfeld scores it 78-74 to the winner by split decision, Christian Lloyd Joseph.
Wow, 78-74. Lloyd Joseph gets his 9th win of the year. Al and I, our scorecards had Mullings ahead, 77-75. And Al is standing by in the ring, and I think the numbers would support a win for Mullings, the final punch numbers, but that's neither here nor there. All that counts is what the judges saw, and let's send it up to Al.
Well, we are here with Christian Lloyd Joseph, and Christian, this was a bout in which you switched a lot back and forth from righty to lefty, and for a while there, it didn't look like the lefty situation was really getting it done for you, but maybe in the middle rounds it switched.
Well, basically, the reason why I switched because, you know, I'm not the man to cry. My left hand was bothering me a little bit, so I had to switch to my southpaw stance. So if your left hand is not working, I mean, if your left side is not working with your right side, you're going to be a little off balance. I had established a jab with my right lead, but I couldn't get the power that I wanted. So I had to keep switching to try to confuse my opponent. That's what I had to do.
Was your left hand hurt?
Yes, it was. It hurts it to sparring. But, you know, I'm not a man to cry. That's why my father trained me both ways. Rudolph Joseph, that's why he trained me like that. Same thing he did with Stone Bramble, same thing he did to me. So I had to switch to make the fight more interesting and to make sure that I had enough to win the fight.
In the later rounds, or in the 6th and 7th round especially, you got some good things done against him with some movement and getting the straight right hand in. What made that possible?
What made that possible was his own mistakes. I capitalized his own mistakes. He was leading with his right hand and leaving himself open. And I knew he was a little winded. And I know once you're winded, you can't really react as quick as possible with that left hook. That's why I took chances. You may notice that my hands are dropping, because like I said, my left hand was hurting. But I have no excuse. I did what I had to do to win the fight. That was basically it.
He came in there in a couple days' notice, but his style was kind of similar to Aaron Mitchell, so in a way you got a break there.
Exactly. I was really prepared for Aaron Mitchell. I really wanted to establish my left jab with Aaron Mitchell, because he was more stationary. Aaron Mitchell is more stationary. This kid, he moved a lot. I mean, bobbing and weaving, and he did what he had to do. All
right, congratulations on a good win.
I'd like to say one thing.
Go ahead.
I give a lot of respect to Stone Bramble, who started me off, as you may know. I'd like to give credit to my father, Rudolph Joseph. He's the one that started me, and Rudolph Joseph, and I love him very much. Thank you. Everyone in the U.S. Virgin Islands, I love you. Anybody in New York City, I love you all.
All right, and animated and happy, Christian Lloyd Joseph. Why not? He just got a win. Let's go down to Bob Papa.
All right, Al.